Hello again, Nicole Mashburn, and we're going to continue our lab discussion of the muscles. And today we're going to talk about the muscles of the trunk, and that includes kind of your upper chest and back, and also the abdomen. So again, make sure you've got your lab guide with you, and I'm going to just go through the muscles as they're listed in your lab guide, talking about where to find them, what their action is, and giving you an idea of which ones are agonist, antagonist, and things like that. And I apologize. I have a little bit of a cold, so I will try not to cough at the microphone. Okay, so the first muscle is the trapezius, and that gets its name because it looks like a trapezoid. And so we've cut away the one on this side, but this is the trapezius. I'm going to outline it. And so the other one would come down like that, and you would get a diamond shape on your back. And so there's a trapezius. Here's one on this side, and then one on this side as well. So you have two. But the thing about the trapezius, it almost acts like four independent muscles. If you look at the fiber directions, you have fiber directions running in this way, and you have some running this way. And so that allows the trapezius to really to do two separate moves. So I want to give you some origin insertions, not for you to be tested on, but to explain to you how this muscle works. The origin is going to be up here near the occipital bone and on the thoracic vertebra. So you have two origins. So these muscles are going to attach here at this origin and also along the vertebral column. So that's going to be your non-moving end. The insertions are going to be on the clavicle and also on the scapula. So if you will look at the fiber directions, if your origin is on the occipital bone and your insertion is at the clavicle, as this muscle contracts, that will bring your shoulders up or allow you to shrug your shoulders. If you're talking about the origin that's along the vertebral column and the insertion along the scapula or your shoulder blade, as these muscles contract, that will pull your muscles, pull your shoulders back, which is called adduction. So it adducts the scapula, okay? So if you poke your chest out or pull your shoulders back as adducting the scapula actually. So this muscle can do two things. You can shrug your shoulders or pull your shoulders back, which is also known as adducting the scapula. Now, I also want to mention, because it acts like four different muscles, you can shrug your right side. You can shrug your right shoulder. You can shrug your left shoulder. You can pull your right shoulder back. You can pull your left shoulder back. Or you can alternate these movements or do both at the same time. So you can just try it on yourself. So shrug your right side, shrug your left side, pull your right shoulder back, pull your left shoulder back, and you'll see how the trapezius works, okay? The next muscle is the latissimus dorsi. So this is this muscle here. And again, we've cut it away on this side, so it would be over on this side. Well, it's kind of like wings, actually. And it's a big sheet of muscle on the back side of your body. So here is this latissimus dorsi here, and then here as well. I want to mention this piece of white connective tissue. This is the lumbodorsal fascia. So if you look in your list of different types of tissue, the connective tissues, this big diamond shape is called the lumbodorsal fascia. Let me spell that for you. Lumbodorsal fascia, and it's on your list of things that you need to know as well. So on the latissimus dorsi, the insertion is actually up under the arm, at the top of the humerus. So this is your insertion up here. Your origin is in the low back, along the spine and in the ilium. So look at your muscle directions, and as this contracts, it's going to pull your humerus down, okay? So the actual term for that is depression and hyperextension of the arm. So think of the downward stroke in the butterfly. So if you were to raise your arms up, and then when you pull your arms down and back, so you downward stroke, so depression, and then backwards hyperextension, that's the movement of the latissimus dorsi, just like you would do in a butterfly stroke while swimming. Now, the muscle that actually pulls your arm up in the forward stroke of the butterfly is your deltoid. So when you think about the butterfly stroke, the deltoid and the latissimus dorsi would be antagonists. So one brings your arm up and one brings your arm back down. And so again, you can identify it on this picture as well. All right, so we're going to turn around to the front of the body, and we're going to look at the pectoralis major. And so whenever you see a major, there's always going to be a minor. So as we learn these things, major means large and minor means small. And so the pectoralis major is your bigger of the two muscles. So here's your pectoralis major here. And then your pectoralis minor, if you peel the pectoralis major away, you can see your pectoralis minor is right here. Okay? And so it's going to be on the upper chest. Its origin is going to be on the sternum. So the origin is here, and the insertion is on the humerus. Okay, so here's your insertion. So look at your fiber direction, and that's going to pull your shoulders toward each other in the front. And so that is called abduction of the scapula. Okay, so think about your shoulder blades, and if you're pulling your shoulders forward, your scapula are kind of moving away from each other, so they're abducting. So abduction of the scapula is what the pectoralis major does. Okay, it also rotates the humerus. It rotates the humerus inwards. So if this abducts your scapula and the trapezius adducts your scapula, then that means these are antagonists. So think about that. So you can bring your shoulders forward and bring your shoulders back, and that's two separate muscles that are doing that. Remember, muscles always pull, they never push. So when you say you're pushing your chest out, you're really pulling your shoulders back. Okay, your pectoralis minor, okay, and again, it's underneath the pectoralis minor, so it's deep to the pectoralis, deep to the pectoralis major. Its origin is going to be on the ribs, so the origin will be here, and the insertion will be on the scapula. So I'm going to put the insertion right here. So look at your fiber directions, and what this is going to do is pull up the ribs. So when you're inhaling, it will help raise the ribs. Okay, so the way you breathe, if you think about the rib cage, your lungs are going to be inside the rib cage, and you have your diaphragm is going to be right here. And this is a relaxed diaphragm. When the diaphragm contracts, it basically flattens out, and your rib cage expands. Okay, so as your rib cage expands and your diaphragm flattens out, that increases the space inside your thoracic cavity. And so it creates a suction, which is basically what you're doing when you inhale. So your pectoralis minor, by pulling your rib cage up, opens up your chest cavity, and that helps you inhale. So just like you would pull a plunger in a syringe and create a vacuum or create a suction, that's basically what's happening when you breathe. You open up your rib cage, depress your diaphragm, and that allows you to suck air in. So your pectoralis minor helps you with inhaling. Also, if you think about the origin here and the insertion being on your scapula, if that contracts, you can also pull your scapula down. So kind of when you roll your shoulders forward, that is a motion that is being done by your pectoralis minor. Excuse me. So the next muscle is called the serratus anterior. So let me go back to this one. The serratus anterior, serratus like a serrated knife, and then anterior on the front. So this is the serratus anterior, and I'll show you another picture, and you can see that it looks kind of like it's braided into your body. So I'll show you what that looks like. It's like it braids into your oblique muscle. So if you'll hang on, I'll show you a different view of that. Your serratus anterior, the origin is on the ribs, and the insertion is on the scapula. So it also abducts the scapula. Okay. So it pulls your scapula forward. Okay, so that would make it an antagonist to your trapezius. Again, I'm just going down your list, so hopefully you're following along with your list with me. All right, and then this is just another view, so you can see a front view, an anterior view, and a posterior view kind of at the same time. So as you're trying to think of these as paired muscles, I put this in here for a reason, so you can say, okay, here's your pectoralis major. It's going to be what is it doing? It's pulling your shoulders forward. You can think about your latissimus dorsi, pulling your arms down. So I just wanted to kind of make sure you're thinking of the front and the back at the same time. A lot of people want to just do the front and the back, so I just kind of want to make sure that you could see all of this on one slide. And I'll come back to this one in a little bit because I'm going to talk about the triceps and biceps. So you'll see this same slide a little later on in another video. All right, let's go to your intercostal muscles. So I think I did skip that. I went to serratus anterior before I did intercostals. So intercostal means between the ribs, and so these are just literally the muscles that are between the ribs. And these are used for breathing. The external intercostals, they help to spread the rib cage or lift the rib cage, so you use these when you inhale. Okay. The internal intercostals, they will pull the rib cage tighter, so these help you exhale. Now, normally when you inhale, that takes energy, it takes ATP to expand your thoracic cage, lower your diaphragm, and suck air in. When you exhale, that's just all those muscles relaxing, and so you just passively exhale typically. All right, but when you want to forcibly exhale, like when you're blowing up a balloon, you would use your internal intercostals. So I want you guys to put your hands on your chest, and I want you to blow really hard, and you'll feel your chest kind of squeeze in. That's those internal intercostals kind of pulling in on your chest wall and helping to force more air out of your lungs. All right. Now these are going to be the muscles of your abdomen, and so your abdominal wall is made up of several different layers, and so we're going to peel away and look kind of the next deep layer, and this long straight muscle here. This is your rectus abdominis. Rectus means straight, like erect. So this is your straight abdominal muscle, and so you have two, obviously one on either side, and so people call it the six-pack. But it's really just little pieces of connective tissue that kind of separate the rectus abdominis into separate pieces. And this allows you to have a graded flexion of the trunk. So when you bend over, you can bend over, you don't just flop over like a rag doll. This allows you to have some graded flexion in your abdominal region. Now your rectus abdominis, the origin is going to be on your pubic symphysis, and the insertion is going to be on the xiphoid process of the sternum. So if you look at your fiber direction, when it contracts, it pulls you down. So it's going to basically cause you to crunch or bend over or flex the trunk. Okay. It also helps you breathe. So if you'll put your hand on your belly and take a big breath, you can feel these muscles contract. So they will also aid in inhalation. Okay. So singers use their they say sing from their gut, and so they're using those rectus abdominis to take a big breath of air to help them sing those really big notes. Now the next layers of the abdominal wall, there's actually three layers. You have your internal and external obliques and your transverse abdominis. So oblique means at an angle. So if you look at the fibers, these are your external obliques, and then your internal obliques go in the opposite direction. So your external obliques kind of go toward the pubic bone, and the internal obliques, their fibers kind of go up toward the sternum. The transversus abdominis, transverse means across, those fibers go straight across, okay? And so these muscles aid in flexion and twisting of the trunk, all right? So your internal and external obliques, that allows you those twisting movements and flexing movements, so when you're twisting from side to side. They also, all three together, if you contract all three muscles at the same time, it will compress the abdomen. So you'll use these when you do the Valsalva maneuver, which is when you're going to the bathroom to push things out. So if you compress the abdomen, you decrease the space in there, and that helps you go to the bathroom when you're doing like a bowel movement or pushing during childbirth. They're also important postural muscles. So this would be called your core muscles. So when I talk about making sure you have strong core muscles, we're talking about a strong abdominal muscle. So those are going to be your three layers of your abdominal wall. So again, look for that fiber direction. External or your most superficial layer, internal or a little bit deeper, and then the transversalis or transverse abdominis is the deepest layer. All right, and the last layer, these are really deep trunk layers, trunk muscles. It's your levator ani and your diaphragm. And so it's hard to see on the model, so usually I use a diagram. But the levator ani is going to be this kind of Y-shaped muscle right here, okay? And it's important, so it elevates the anus is basically what that's telling you. So it elevates the pelvic floor. So it is basically the floor of your pelvic cavity, and it supports those organs and elevates the anus. And it's an important muscle. If you can look at this picture, you'll see this is a female, and you've got the vaginal opening and the urethral opening and the anus. These are all sphincter muscles, and this levator ani helps to keep those keeps the pelvic floor tight and elevated. If this muscle relaxes and this muscle kind of stretches out, it can stretch kind of pull against those sphincter muscles and can lead to incontinence. So people will do Kegel exercises to help strengthen the pelvic floor so that they don't get incontinence. And so that's a very important organ or muscle. And then the last muscle is the diaphragm, and I didn't have a really good picture of it either, but it's going to be basically the skeletal muscle that divides the thoracic and abdominal cavity, so it's right here, okay? And again, when it's relaxed, it kind of makes a dome, and then when it contracts, it kind of flattens out. And it is very important in breathing. It is your main breathing muscle. And a lot of times people will ask me, well, you don't have to think about breathing, so it must not be voluntary, because we've said all skeletal muscle is voluntary. And so people will think it's not voluntary because most of us don't think about breathing. However, if you decide to breathe fast or decide to breathe slow or hold your breath, you are in control of it. So that means it is indeed a voluntary skeletal muscle. So don't be confused and try to call it a smooth muscle or something like that. It is a skeletal muscle under voluntary control. So because it's your main breathing muscle, that means it works with or is synergistic with the pectoralis minor and the external oblique and the rectus abdominis. So all of these muscles work together when you inhale, okay? The diaphragm relaxing is how you exhale. It simply relaxes and forces the air out of the lungs through the trachea and out the oral cavity. All right, so what you need to do is then take a look at these pictures and try to identify the muscles on the model. So I'm going to just kind of outline. This will be the trapezius here. Okay, this is going to be your latissimus dorsi here and here. We have our, let's go ahead and kind of come down here for your latissimus dorsi. This is our serratus anterior right here. It's like a serrated knife. You can also see the latissimus dorsi is on this side here. You can see your abdominal muscles here. And I forgot to mention this thing right here, this white line, is called the linea alba. So it literally means white line. So alba, like albino, to be white, linea mean line. So the white line that connects the two abdominal muscles, rectus abdominis, is your linea alba. Here's your pectoralis major. Here's your pectoralis minor. Here's the serratus anterior. You can see it kind of coming in and braiding with the external oblique. And then we've peeled away the external oblique here, and you can see the internal oblique. Okay, so these fibers are running up toward the sternum. These are running down toward the pubic bone. And then this would be your rectus abdominis right here. So again, look at the different models and try to identify the muscles, because you'll see any of these pictures is fair game on the practical. I may use a diagram as well. Here would be your serratus anterior, external oblique, internal oblique, transverse abdominis here, rectus abdominis here. You've got your pectoralis major would be right here. Your external intercostals, your internal intercostals would be here. And that is all. So again, just take a look at the different pictures of the model and try to label those and identify those, and you should do just fine. Work on the spelling. I do know one thing that people tend to forget. Let me go back and go to this slide. When you're looking at your abdominal muscles, make sure that you're kind of over pronouncing them. Okay, so for example, latissimus, so just kind of say mus, so you don't say latissimus. So latissimus will help you spell it. If you say pectoralis, if you say pectoralis, you may misspell it. So kind of over pronounce it with a lis, so that you're, or lice even, just so that you'll spell it right. Where's another one? Pectoralis, latissimus. Let's see. I'm sure there's more. So anyway, just really over. Here's one. Abdominis. Okay, so a lot of people want to say the rectus abdominis. They want to put a US there. It's abdominis. So there you go. There's an IS. So just again, if you'll kind of over pronounce it, maybe that'll help you spell it, and you won't get your IS's and your US's. So IS and US is probably the most common misspellings that I see on this exam. All right, so that's all I'm going to do today, and I will see you in the next lab video. Thank you very much.